Welcome back everyone to Kaiserreich, and this time we're going to be playing, finally, the United States. I know, it's been about a month and a half since I actually had the vote, and finally I'm getting around to it. Well, what is my objective for the campaign? It's the reverse of what I did with Brazil. It's to make all of the Americas democratic and, well, possibly part of the United States. So I guess I could call it the Monroe Doctrine playthrough? I don't know. Let's see. Who shall we buff up? Probably Japan. National France, no. Soviet, Austria, Russia, Canada we should buff up. Because for the purposes of this, I'm considering Canada an enemy. Union of Britain, International. Well, I mean, I probably have to buff up the international just to avoid Canada getting too powerful by taking over Europe. So that means I also need to buff up the German Empire. Probably, though, all of this half, just so that they don't get too strong like they did in the last playthrough I did with Brazil, which, by the way, I haven't completed yet as of the time of recording this, so I don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, what happens is then in the late game they spam too many units. Anyway, no one else really to buff up, so let's just go. Of course, the main thing about this playthrough is probably going to be the Civil War, and we'll get to it soon. You'll see what I intend to do with the Civil War. And yep, here we are, loading up as the United States. Now, essentially, the reason why I'm giving myself such a, I guess you could say, limited objective, it's because I don't want to get myself too bogged down with this, because the Kaiserreich 0.6 update should be coming someday, and that means that there's going to be a lot of Kaiserreich to record that's not related in any way to, well, anything else, so should be pretty important to, I guess, not really have anything too big going on, because it's probably going to crash the save games. It's probably going to, no, just stay in Virginia, please. It's probably going to crash the save games. It's probably going to do a lot of bad things, and there's going to be a lot of different playthroughs to try out, so no reason not to wait for it. Alright, just quickly organizing those fleets. I mean, not much to do with fleets, to be completely honest. As we all know, in Kaiserreich, the United States isn't as spread out everywhere as it is in our timeline. Northeast, really now. Right, okay. No submarines over here. Anyway, so we have, right, we have 4 divisions, nothing really too major. Let's see. Looks like we have some good field marshals, but not really any good generals. That's strange. Thomas T. Handy. He's got bearer of artillery, which is very rare. So let's use him. Train up some divisions. And free military factories. Strange to start as a nation that isn't a backwater. I'm more used to that second. Wait, oh, Panama Canal Garrison. I also have Caribbean Fleet. Alright, who else do I have? Just the Panama Canal Garrison. Okay. That's fine. Research slots. Let's get mortars, because of course we are the United States, so relatively quick fighting is going to happen to us. Not as much time to get peaceful technologies as other people. Alright, and with dockyards, well, let's get some carriers. Of course, it's not like we're gonna keep any of these ports except for Texas, so that's where we're gonna send our carriers that we complete. Sims-class destroyers, also here. Yeah, of course, with the benefit of hindsight, you know what's gonna fall to the syndicates and the American Union State. There we are. Of course, we don't have any consumer goods factories that we can use because of the Great Depression modifier, which is giving us 40% consumer goods. Of course, we can't take any focuses because we are, well, in a bit of a deadlock. Now, America in 1946, I'm not going to try to explain anything of the politics because I do have a video about that, so you can just kind of go ahead and check it out. I'm probably going to link it in the description. Anyway, I am going to read, however, these things. So, America in 1936 stands in crisis. The United States was able to escape in the First Weltkrieg, which allowed its prosperity to continue well into the 1920s. However, victory by the German Empire and the French and later British revolutions would lead to the Wall Street crash of 1925. This sent the United States into the Great Depression and allowed the Berlin stock market to take its place in the world. The election of Herbert Hoover in the 1928 showed promise of fixing America. However, Hoover was unable to fix the problems of the Depression. This has fueled the rise of radical parties in America, from the CSA on the far left to the America First Party on the far right. The fact that Hoover won re-election by the House of Representatives in 1932 and the fact that the Great Depression isn't over means that the problems do not look to be going away anytime soon. Many throughout the country fear that disaster will happen should one of the extreme parties come into power, or nothing is done to solve the Depression. God save the United States and all of that. All right. So basically our government, we have Herbert Hoover as president, with Charles Curtis being our prime minister. He, of course, has the chance of getting re-elected should those elections go ahead in the first place, because, well, there's always the possibility of just stopping them with MacArthur. Of course, we all know about the legation cities. They're gonna get changed one day. All right, so we've finally got some factories. Probably at this point, we should try to rush out some militaries in areas that we're not going to lose, just to be safe. Are we going to be able to get one of these military factories? Not really. 30th of November. It's usually in September that things go down. Yes, Afghanistan. We all know. Black Monday. Despite the political turmoil going on throughout the country, it looked like the economy of the United States might be finally recovering after the Wall Street crash of 1925. However, today, the devastating Berlin crash has finally hit America and has sent our economy into a downward spiral yet again. Reed and Long have come out railing against the corrupt bankers who let the crash happen. Curtis and Garner have both pledged to fix the economy should they win the election. This is just not our year, and so we have an even worse Great Depression. God damn it, Germany, why did you have to do this? Vice President Curtis, remember, recovers. He's ill, but, you know, he's gonna recover. Modern times. Goddamn Charlie Chaplin. And the Battle of the Overpass. So that's, okay. You don't know what this is. So, in Detroit, Michigan, the automotive capital of the world, Walter Reuther and Richard Frankenstein, the leaders of the United Auto Workers Association, called a general strike against the Ford Motor Company and proclaimed themselves for unionism and not Fordism, demanding higher pay and less hours for automotive workers. At 2 p.m. today, a photographer from the Detroit Free Press asked to take a photo of the leaders of the UAW standing on the overpass with the Ford sign in the background. While they were posing, a group of 40 men from Ford's service department approached them from behind and began to beat them up with their batons. The group then continued their attack on some of the beret-wearing women present to pass out leaflets. So, of course, unrest going on in Detroit. Minus 350 political power. It's going to get worse. I'm also on veteran difficulty, as you can see. Oh, right, I also have an Air Force. Well, let's check out the Air Force. Not bad. I mean, of course, some of this is probably going to, well, defect. Let's get the fighters into one, the bombers into another, just to have a little bit of a better idea of what's going on. 100th anniversary of the Alamo. Goddammit, Alamo. And then, of course, we have our carrier air groups, our CAGs. Well, they're okay. Farda Coughlин's CBS radio broadcast. 3 years from today, Father Charles Coughlin started doing weekly radio broadcasts in America, and more than 50 million people turn on their radios and listen. He is a raving anti-Semite, claiming that the syndicalist revolution in France was fomented by the Jew, and that the Berlin stock market crash is an international conspiracy of the Jewish bankers, and somehow people still tune in. His hate speech will not be tolerated by the church, and the Pope is expected to make a decision on whether to ask the United States government to shut down his broadcast, so that his hateful message cannot reach the public. Either we can shut him down and lose polypowers, or there is nothing we can do and still lose polypowers, but just lose some relations with the Italian Federation. To be completely honest, in Hearts of Iron 4, relations aren't really all that useful. And you can always in some way recover them by having, like, improved relations, military access, all of that. St. Patrick's Day flood. I don't think there's any reason not to help the people. In Darkest Hour, that event used to take away your money, which was a resource that existed, but in, you know, Hearts of Iron 4, there's no money. Anyway, yeah, we'll be speeding through this first part relatively quickly, so I don't think I'll cut anything out, because, again, it's going to be September, I think, when the Civil War starts. Well, usually it is around September. 36 Stanley Cup. I don't know anything about hockey. No thanks. Weird sports don't interest me. And the Detroit Red Wings win. As far as I know, Canadians and Americans usually go to war about hockey. Yes, hockey. Indian Citizenship Act. For the first time, the Indians are going to be full-class citizens. Never mind that 40 years ago we were slaughtering them. As you can see, we have very low stability already due to minus 260 political power. Although the fact that we can't take any focuses is definitely helping with that. And as usual, Asia erupts. We have, you know, Ma Fuxiang trying to defend himself. And probably Afghanistan lost, as they always do. How's France? Travailleurs, so syndicalists. Union of Britain, oh no. Autonomists in the Union of Britain. So it looks like, yeah, it looks like the syndicalists are definitely not going to be strong. Because if the Union of Britain isn't strong, well, and with the autonomists, they're not going to be strong. What about Italy? Togliatti and the syndicalists. In the Italian Federation, we have the boring one, Stephen. Trial of Sacco and Vanzetti. This is actually an interesting thing. So two immigrants from Italy, Sacco and Vanzetti, have been accused of killing a guard and a paymaster of a local bank in the Braintree, Massachusetts, a town outside of Boston. The case has quickly become the trial of the century, rather, for Sacco and Vanzetti are anarchists. Unsurprisingly, the CSA has come out strongly in favor of the two men, while the America First Party has come out against them. However, the case goes, it looks like it will be angering plenty of people. So we're going to say Sacco and Vanzetti are guilty, because that's, I guess, the historical outcome. So Sacco and Vanzetti are these two anarchists and Italian immigrants that were essentially put on trial. And it was a very, very complicated ordeal. Should we take dispersed or concentrated? I'm going to take concentrated. 5% more factory output. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, and I've got this guy. This guy will research armor, probably. Or, logistics company. I don't know. Just do artillery. Because we are building artillery. So, yeah. So, it's interesting because it's kind of a spectacle of the whole Italian immigration phenomenon in the United States. Oh boy. The Arab Congress and Revolution in Siam. Okay, nothing too major. Let's check out. Oh, they didn't form the Axis. Maybe they're still waiting around for that. And wow. Roman Dmowski. National Populist Poland. Someone requested that I do a politics overview for Poland. I will. But it's going to take so long because I don't know anything about Polish politics as a whole. I know Mussolini in Italy, I don't know anything about Polish politics as a whole, and this focus tree is absolutely gigantic. So not only, this just isn't our year. Not only this is going to take forever to meet the research, I mean, except for like the monarchist part, which is going to be like, oh yeah, it's just the way Poland worked in the Middle Ages rehashed. It's the new Congress Poland. But the democratic, the nationalist, and I mean, I know a little bit about the syndicalist stuff. Oh, there goes Alexander Borkman. So today, the writer-leader of the American anarcho-syndicalist movement and the would-be assassin Alexander Borkman, who was a Lithuanian anarchist, would-be assassin because of essentially happenings in the Russian Empire and Piotr Wrangel. Anyway, passed away after losing his battle with prostate condition. For his funeral, the body will be taken back to his hometown of Vilnius, Lithuania. He was the leader of the syndicalist movement in the Americas, and the movement suffers a major setback with his departure. Of course, the anarcho-syndicalist torch passes on to John Jack Reed, famously a journalist who lived through the October Revolution and then came back to America to lead, some of the workers' organizations. Gone with the Wind. My dear, I don't give a damn. I never saw Gone with the Wind. I know it's about like the post-Civil War South. 4th of July. Yep. 4th of July event happening on the 8th of July as well. Interesting. Oh wow. I've got all the battleships that in our timeline get kind of smashed at Pearl Harbor. Alright, let's check out this fleet. Pacific Fleet. So we've got 3 aircraft carriers, Langley, Saratoga, Lexington. Of course, the first 3 CBs. Okay, we've got that. We've got radio. And, of course, we've got 10 battleships. So that's a lot of battleships. Oh, really now? Really now? I didn't expect this. Looks like because of Wrangel being too harsh, we have the Second Russian Civil War. Mere 20 years ago, in the last years of the Weltkrieg, the Russian Empire collapsed in turmoil, ripped apart between nationalist movements, the Whites, and the Reds. After a German intervention, the Republican government defeated the Bolsheviks, but it appears that the Russian revolutionary spirit was not extinguished. After ineffective land reform by the Kerensky government and austerity measures to pay off the Brest-Litovsk reparations, as well as a crisis in the government after the president's assassination, the cities in the western part of the nation have been engulfed by the red tide once more. Will Bukharin's Soviet Russia prevail, or the loyalists of the white government defeat the dissenters a second time? So this is, well, pretty interesting. It would be even more interesting if Soviet Russia wins. Alright, so Edward VIII sends a letter to Hoover saying, do something, and Hoover's like, yeah, and what can I do? And that reduces our poly powers, because, oh my god, he's a British sympathizer. He gets orders from the bloody Canadians and all that. So I was saying earlier, it's interesting that the trial of those 2 Italians happens in the context of Kaiserreich because, again, they're anarchists. And it's kind of a symptom of the whole Italian immigration in the United States, because in our world, that got kind of shut down in the 1920s, and the Italians were very much a, I guess, target of racist tendencies and lynchings, because they essentially didn't consider the Italians as European whites, right? Because there's the whole WASP thing, that would be white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant criteria for accepting immigrants and all of that. So it's like, if you're Anglo-Saxon, if you're from Britain, I mean, they included Germans in that too, and Scandinavians, because, they're Saxons and all of that. Wait, oh, damn it. I'm not sure what I did with... Okay, good. So Liberia, of course, gets the option of asking for the American bailout. Wait, what? Hold the fort. When would be the last save game? Alright, let's go to that. Because they get the option, of course, to ask for an American bailout for their debt, right? And what I want to do is I want to, of course, help them out, because that's going to relatively lower our political power in the meantime, I think. Just by a few. They're still going with the bailout, I think. Oh, they This time they took the deal with Firestone as the event. God damn it. Anyway, they can ask for an American bailout for their debt, or a German bailout, or deal with Firestone, of course, a rubber company. It is an American company, but it's not part of our government. I mean, they still are a puppet of the United States, but with this, once the Civil War erupts, I think they're going to break free, right? And if they took the American bailout, then they would stay with us. Now, in case you're interested, shameless self-promotion incoming. That would be, I did a video about Liberia a while ago. It's a very cool one. I think it came very well. And this is what I was talking about. A day in September. The social and political consensus in the American society has broken down, and the current presidential election is nothing like we've ever seen. The America First Union Party is organizing right-wing militias in the South and the Midwest, and the syndicalists control the streets of Chicago and Detroit. To avoid a complete breakdown of our society, some of our senior military commanders believe that it may be necessary to suspend the Constitution and cancel the elections. And fight the military and save the country. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the American Cincinnatus, which would be MacArthur steps in to save democracy and then gives up power once he has stabilized the situation. That is my whole plan. Now, I'm doing this because it's not a route I usually see people take. They usually go, of course, American Kaiser, because yes, MacArthur, supreme dictator of the United States, is pretty fun. Or they go with just one of the democracy routes. Just period. But I want the whole thing to be a little bit more convoluted. Now, there's also, the fact that the military essentially takes over a lot of the government. Now, they have La Follette over here as foreign minister. They have Eisenhower as the head of government. Of course, he can become the dictator following MacArthur, because MacArthur at some point, spoiler, dies. If you're taking the American Kaiser, I don't remember if he gets assassinated or something, but he dies at some point, and so you can have Eisenhower be the military dictator of the United States, which is pretty ironic. And then you have, of course, J. Edgar Hoover as the Minister of the Interior, so the FBI just kind of stepping in to help out the military. The end of the American democracy. Surprising news have arrived from the United States of America today. President Herbert Hoover, whose administration has proven to be incapable of stabilizing the divided country and calming down the CSA and AFP militants, has invited General Douglas MacArthur to take the reins of the country with a junta of military men and corporate representatives, or I guess a junta because it's Spanish. President MacArthur is a strong proponent of an iron fist rule and opposes both syndicalism and American pacifism. Large-scale crackdowns on the enemies of America have already been reported. So what we can do is we can either go protector of democracy or destroy domestic enemies. I think that it doesn't really have any differences. Yeah, no, it doesn't. Wait, no, okay. So this is protector of democracy, and this is... yeah, it's the same. And I don't think it changes anything. Like, I still don't... I don't think it changes anything. But just to be... because I think this is just... Well, let's just to be safe, let's take Protector of Democracy, even though I wanted to take the other one. Because... oh, average popularity. Okay, people love MacArthur. Alright, new Army Division joins the fray. The 1st Infantry Division, although we already have the 1st Infantry Division. Yeah, we need to wait for, of course, whatchamacallit. We need to wait for the Waking the Tiger, like, I don't know, like, naming list change that they have. Because you're going to have, like, a naming list that essentially keeps in mind which names have already been taken and all of that. And United Mexican States, looks like the Villistas won the power struggle, and they've got a massive, well, maybe not massive, but they've definitely got some units on the border, which is kind of annoying. Alright, and looks like right now the factories have been... right, it was Black Monday that defeated our industrial production for good. Alright, interwar artillery, that's too early. Let's go ahead and get some tank research done and dealt with. We should have the Civil War in a little bit. All right, Soviet Russia. How's it going? Wait, Ukraine? Oh, that's because they have Comrade Vasil in charge. You know, the king, Comrade King Vasil with the Popular Front. So they invited Khrushchev in the government. I wonder if they're gonna go full on corn and restore the Redhead Man or whatever. That would be pretty interesting. Abyssinia declared war on Eritrea. Already. Wow, that was quick. That is very quick. Alright, constitutional ban. MacArthur was prepared for extreme action in dealing with both the America First Party and the combined syndicates. He attacked both parties as being prepared to use the election to destroy the American Constitution and thus prepared to pass an act to ban both the parties from participating in the election. The act would remove both political parties from being legitimate entities, as any action that they progressed with would be seen as an act of treason. Pass the act and declare martial law. Alright, at least now we are getting some construction underway. And one thing that the days of violence. The days leading up to the election were marred by violence as both the America First and CSA protested their ban from the elections. Anarchist groups attacked government buildings, and America First supporters denounced the election as nothing more than a joke. While Reid and the CSA threatened a general strike if the election did not include them, the America First rallied around Long, who used his position in the Senate to demand his inclusion in the election. The ban stands. Reid declares the worker state, the rise of the CSA. So the combined syndicates of America are now breaking free. The disaster has begun. Stand by the Republic. Or the rising has begun. Stand by the workers. That would be playing as the CSA, which we're not going to do now. Maybe after the rework for the American Civil War. Because they're definitely going to rework the AUS and the CSA a little bit, and very, very much they're going to rework the Pacific states. So maybe. Long declares the United States a dead nation. The rise of the AUS. So now, oops, looks like the American Union state has declared independence. So now we are fully in the Civil War. Well, not yet, but now we are. All right, part of the Navy defects. That, of course, takes away part of our Navy. California leaves the Union. America Union States succeeds. We're going to declare war. That gives us some polypower. North Carolina, Florida, Arkansas, and Louisiana join the American Union States, so they get an expansion. High popularity. All right. That's because, well, all the people who wanted us dead are now trying actively to kill us. So, of course, internally, we are better positioned. Yeah, it still says that California leaves the Union even though we don't have any PSA out here yet, but soon enough we will. Don't worry. All right, let's gather up our divisions and march. Well, what shall we take first? Right, we kind of need to... Well, actually, the first infantry division, the big one, is just going to stay in Washington. Because they're a relatively good division, right? So they're not... Yeah, 9 battalions plus artillery support. And the problem with the American Civil War is that people have massive amounts of militias. Massive amount of militias that they get by event. So we're going to need to wait for those militias to rise up in our support before we can do really too much. All right, let's get our Atlantic Fleet under the command of probably Leahy with that Ironside bonus. Maybe Ernest King. He's got Blockade Runner and Superior Tactician. But now, I mean, the capital ship armor is a little bit too strong. Why doesn't Raymond Spruance have anything for aircraft carriers? And where's Nimitz? Maybe he defected. Maybe Nimitz defected. That would be, well. All right, he's gonna search and destroy around the eastern seaboard. This is gonna protect our supply lines to Washington, D.C. My idea is to, again, keep Washington, D.C. as protected as possible. In fact, probably should keep units in Baltimore as well because that's where that airfield is. It looks like our Air Force stayed loyal, so that's pretty good. We are gonna get some interception and air superiority going. And, of course, The close air supports are going to be very, very useful. All right, the Indian Head Division is going to stay here in San Francisco because I don't know where they're going to get ported or if they're going to stay with us at all. We're going to take partial mobilization or the American war economy. I think the American war economy... Oh no, that's just the American war economy period as a focus tree. So it doesn't actually give me the American war economy. Right. None of these seem to have... Nope, none of these seem to have any ways of changing my economy as a national law. So I'm going to take... Yeah, I'm going to take the partial mobilization policy. And of course, we can't take the American war economy yet because at war and any enemy country has more than 40% of the United States total number of factories. We'll just wait for that. Soon enough it will be. And how much political power do we need for that? 100. So we can probably go ahead and get myself a chief of staff. Well, it probably should be MacArthur now, should it? School of Psychology is also going to be relatively useful because there's going to be a lot of low-tier militias running around, so having more organization is just very good. Cuba seizes Guantanamo. Damn it. California leaves the Union. Either the final insult or the final insult play as California, but no, we're just going to take the final insult. All right. We still have the Navy over here. Let's get them back around. Part of the Navy is going to defect, by the way, so it's kind of worthless. Yeah, we're going to send the Indian Head Division to the CSA. Or actually, no. We're going to send it to the American Union states. The PSA, I think my strategy is going to be to leave them, even if... Oh, damn it, Japan. Hawaii revolts. Should have expected this. The National Guard rallies. Volunteer units. Part of the Navy defects. The Second American Civil War began. Okay, so that is what I was talking about with the National Guard rising up. You know, probably the American Union state is not going to have enough to keep their ports guarded. It's interesting to think about. It's interesting to think about. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to scout out the ports. Just to make sure that we can exploit. Alright, the National Guardsmen are arriving. Although I need to take a sip of water. I've got something stuck in my throat. Cool. I think I'm going to end it right now because we're over half an hour. So I want to thank y'all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. I will see you soon with more America. And as always, have a nice day.